In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to install your upgraded puncture pin assembly and your upgraded adjustable CO2 cap. We're first going to start off by removing the screws that hold your left-hand receiver onto the marker. I already kind of done this prior to the video, so it'll make it a little bit quicker for us to jump into it and take it apart. Just kind of loosen this one up just a little bit. Now that we almost have our receiver off here, kind of set that off to the side. You can kind of see how your bolt spring will kind of pop up your breech and everything, and that's okay, that's normal. So we have our puncture assembly right here. This is our older version. We'll take that out, put that out to the side, and we'll go ahead and we'll reinstall our newer version of the puncture valve assembly. This version just has a sharper pin on the front. It'll help pierce the cartridge a little bit better. So when you're putting this on, you're just going to want to make sure that you're not cutting the O-ring on your gas line. Make sure that you kind of just push that in there evenly. If you get that puncture valve assembly kind of cockeyed, what will happen is you'll cut that O-ring on the gas line. So make sure that you get that nice and straight. From there, we'll go ahead, we'll put our receiver back on. Make sure that your mag release button is on the outside of your receiver. Sometimes what will happen is it'll fall in while you're trying to put the receiver down, so it'll make it kind of hard to put that back together. Sometimes you can just take a tool and just pop it back out. I usually use my index finger. So we'll go ahead and tighten down our screws on this one. Now that we have our receiver bolts tightened down, we can now move to the adjustable CO2 cap. We'll just go ahead and remove our standard CO2 cap. And when you're making these adjustments for your CO2 cap, you always want to make sure that you don't have a barrel blocking device in whenever you're adding air to the marker. So we'll go ahead, we'll put our barrel bag on. Now I just want to talk a little bit about the set screws. This is your adjustable set screw, and then you have your locking set screw. We'll first go ahead and put our adjustable set screw in. And you just want to turn this in until it's flush with the face of the CO2 cap. And there you go, that's about, yeah, that's flush. Okay. And then you have your locking set screw. We'll mess with that a little bit later, but what we're going to do first is we're going to take our first 12 gram. I have a series of 5 12 grams here. And we're just pretty much going to try to determine the length of the 12 gram and get the TPX to puncture the 12 grams correctly. So we're just going to go ahead, we're going to take our first cartridge, slide it in from the front. And like I said, you're going to have that screw flush. Go ahead and put your cap in. And you should be able to kind of feather that trigger. You're not really pulling it. I mean, you can see that I am pulling it all the way back and it's not puncturing. And that's fine because that set screw is flush. That's going to, what that's going to do is your 12 grams not going to be pushed up against the face of the puncture valve assembly, so you won't be able to puncture it. Now from there, what I usually do is I'll take my 3/16 Allen wrench and we'll just kind of turn that in clockwise. And what you're doing is you're just kind of feathering the trigger. You're not really trying to pull it to get the gun to puncture the cartridge. You're just kind of feathering it lightly. And you're adjusting the screw at the same time. And you can see that some of that slack in the trigger is being taken up by the adjustment of the screw. So you're controlling, how far that cartridge sits from the puncture valve. And as you can see, there's hardly any play in this trigger whatsoever. So now once you're at that point, I usually like to back it off a quarter turn, and then you'll have just a little bit of play. Then from there, we're just going to go through and we're going to check the rest of our cartridges to make sure that they have pretty close to the same amount of play in the trigger. add our second cartridge, and it's about the same. Now say for instance you were to put this cartridge in, it was really hard to put the cap in, you might get a pre-puncture, and that's just due to the set screw being put in too deep. So this one fits just fine. We'll go ahead and slide that one back out. And we'll just continue to check these just to make sure that the puncture travel in the trigger is about the same. And like I said, you're not really pulling this trigger hard. You're just kind of feathering the trigger just to make sure that the travel is about the same for all these cartridges. And this is just going to ensure that you get a good puncture on your 12 grams. The reason we're checking 5 is because with some of the cartridges out there, they do vary a little bit in size, anywhere from 10 thousandths to 30 thousandths in length, and that'll definitely cause the TPX not to puncture a cartridge if it's too short. That's why we have the adjustable cap. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead, we have our adjustment set correctly for our cartridges. We'll now put our locking set screw above our adjustable set screw. You're just going to turn this in until it stops. And then once it stops, just give it a little extra oomph just to kind of lock it into place. We'll go ahead and put one of our 12 grams in, put our cap in, lock our cap into that second position, and then we'll puncture the cartridge. And that's how you adjust your CO2 cap and install your new puncture valve assembly.